It was a quiet Saturday morning in Los Angeles. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft gold glow across the city. The streets were slowly coming to life, cars humming, birds calling, and people beginning their weekend routines. In a small apartment near the edge of town, a young woman named Emily Parker was already awake, sitting by the window with her sketchbook on her lap. Emily was 28 years old and had Down syndrome. Her life was full of routines she loved. Her morning art sessions, her favorite radio station playing soft music, and her weekend visits to the grocery store down the street. Every small task she did on her own gave her a sense of pride. She liked feeling independent. That morning, Emily had drawn a bright sunflower in her sketchbook. She smiled at it for a while, thinking about how it looked a little bit like her. Simple, bright, and always reaching for the sun. Her mother came into the room with a gentle smile. "Are you going to the store today, sweetheart?" she asked. Emily nodded. "Yes, I want to buy cookies for movie night." Her mother chuckled. "You and your cookies," Emily giggled softly. She packed her small tote bag, made sure she had her wallet, and gave her mom a quick hug before leaving. The grocery store wasn't far, maybe a 10-minute walk. Emily liked walking there alone. The cool morning air brushed against her cheeks as she walked down the familiar street. She waved at Mr. Thompson, the elderly man who always watered his garden around that time, and at a group of kids riding their bikes. Everyone in the neighborhood knew Emily. She was kind, polite, and always had a big smile for anyone who said hello. When she reached the store, she pulled open the door with both hands and stepped inside. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery section always made her happy. She grabbed a small shopping basket and started humming a tune, something she'd heard on the radio earlier that day. Her first stop was the snack aisle. She loved the colorful packets lined up neatly on the shelves. She took her time picking out her favorite chocolate chip cookies, a small bag of chips, and a juice box. She read each label carefully. Her mom had taught her how to check for the things she could and couldn't eat. After that, she went to the dairy section to grab milk and yogurt. As she reached for a carton, she accidentally dropped one on the floor. It didn't spill, but it made a loud thud. "Oh no," she said softly, bending down to pick it up. A kind employee nearby smiled and helped her. "It's okay, miss. Don't worry about it." Emily smiled shyly. "Thank you." She put the carton back on the shelf and continued her shopping. Everything about her that day, her calm pace, her gentle voice, her soft humming, made her look like she belonged in her own happy world. She was doing what she loved most, being herself, being independent. But as Emily turned into the next aisle, the candy aisle, her morning began to change. A group of 3 young women, probably in their early 20s, stood by the shelves laughing loudly. They were dressed fashionably, their phones in their hands, and they talked as if the store was their private hangout. When Emily walked past them, still humming softly, they went quiet for a moment. Then one of them whispered something and the others giggled. Emily didn't notice at first. She was too busy deciding between 2 candy bars, but she soon became aware of the giggles behind her. She turned slightly, giving a polite smile, and then turned back to her shopping. One of the girls, the one with long blonde hair and a phone in her hand, spoke loud enough for Emily to hear. "Oh my God, she's like so slow. Look at her reading every label." Her friends snickered. Another one whispered, "Should we ask if she needs help finding the baby food aisle?" And they burst into quiet laughter again. Emily froze. She could feel her cheeks warming. She didn't really understand what they found funny, but she could tell it wasn't kind. She tried to ignore them and moved toward the end of the aisle, her hands trembling slightly as she held her basket. The girls followed a few steps behind, still whispering and giggling. "Hey," one of them said in a teasing tone, "are you making TikToks too?" "We could tag you." Emily didn't respond. She just wanted to get to the checkout line and leave. Her heart started to beat faster. The soft joy she'd felt that morning was quickly fading into something small and heavy, a feeling she couldn't quite name but had felt before. She picked up her pace, clutching her basket tightly. She tried to remind herself of what her mother always said. If someone is unkind, it says more about them than it does about you, but it was hard. At the corner of the aisle, Emily stopped for a moment and took a deep breath. She didn't want to cry. Not here, not in public. She tried to focus on something else. The music playing faintly over the store speakers, The sound of shopping carts rolling on the tile floor, the gentle chatter of other customers. Meanwhile, a few aisles away, a man wearing a black baseball cap, a plain gray hoodie and sunglasses was quietly browsing the store. He moved calmly, head slightly lowered, not wanting attention. Nobody recognized him. He was simply another shopper, polite, quiet, and thoughtful. Back in the candy aisle, the girls started whispering again. "She's so weird," one muttered. "Why is she even here alone? Maybe she's one of those special needs people," another said, rolling her eyes. Emily's hand froze over the shelf. The words hit her like a stone. She swallowed hard and blinked rapidly. She wanted to leave. She wanted to be anywhere else, but she didn't want to cause a scene. So she turned around slowly, trying to smile, and said softly, "I'm just shopping." Her voice was gentle, careful, almost apologetic, as if she had done something wrong just by existing near them. The girls just laughed again. "Relax, we're not saying anything bad," one of them lied, though her smirk said otherwise. Emily gave a small nod and started walking toward the front of the store. Her steps were quick but uneven. Her basket rattled slightly in her hands. She just wanted to pay and leave. She didn't notice that the man in the gray hoodie had paused at the end of the aisle, watching quietly from a distance. He had seen the exchange. He had heard enough. Emily reached the checkout counter, trying to stay calm. The cashier greeted her kindly, unaware of what had just happened. "Hi there. Did you find everything you needed today?" "Yes," Emily said softly, forcing a small smile. "Thank you." As the cashier began scanning her items, the girls appeared again near the line, pretending to browse a display of gum and candy. They kept glancing her way, still whispering and giggling. Emily kept her eyes down. She focused on the sound of the beeping scanner. One item, then another. And another. Her hands shook slightly as she reached for her wallet. She hoped the girls would just get bored and leave. But then one of them took out her phone again and whispered, "This is going to be hilarious." She lifted the phone slightly, aiming it in Emily's direction. Before she could press record, a deep, calm voice spoke from behind her. "Is there a problem here?" The sound was quiet but strong, the kind of voice that carried authority without needing to shout. The girls froze. Slowly, they turned around. Standing a few steps away was the man in the gray hoodie and baseball cap. The store suddenly felt quieter. Even the cashier stopped what they were doing for a moment. The man's face was mostly hidden by his sunglasses, but there was something unmistakable about him. His voice, his presence, the quiet kindness in the way he stood. The girls blinked, their smirks fading. One of them opened her mouth, but no words came out. Emily, still clutching her wallet, looked up in surprise. For a second, she didn't recognize him. Then her eyes widened just a little, as if a tiny spark of recognition began to grow. The store was completely still. No one spoke. The girls slowly lowered their phones. The man said nothing more for now. He just looked at them, calm but firm, like someone who had seen enough to know when something wasn't right. And in that quiet moment, for the first time since she'd walked into the store, Emily felt that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. For a long moment, the air inside the store felt heavy and still. The girls who had been laughing just seconds earlier now stood frozen. Their confident smiles faded as they looked at the man who had spoken. His voice had been calm, but there was something about it that made everyone stop. He didn't raise his voice, didn't look angry, but there was a quiet strength in his tone, the kind that made people listen without being told twice. One of the girls tried to laugh it off. No, there's no problem," she said quickly, tucking her phone into her pocket. Her voice sounded shaky now, unsure. The man tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable behind his dark glasses. "It didn't look that way," he said softly. "You were filming her, weren't you?" The girls glanced at each other. The one with the blonde hair opened her mouth but closed it again. The other shifted uncomfortably, looking down at the floor. Emily stood by the counter, still holding her wallet, not sure what to do. Her heart was pounding. She didn't want trouble. She didn't like conflict. But something about the way the man spoke made her feel safe. The cashier, a young woman who had been watching quietly, finally spoke. "I saw it too," she said in a low voice. They were bothering her. The man nodded slightly, then looked back at the girls. "You think that's funny?" he asked, not with anger but disappointment. "Making someone feel small for no reason?" The girls didn't answer. They looked embarrassed now, their confidence melting away like ice under sunlight. The man sighed. You know, he said quietly, kindness doesn't cost anything. But cruelty? That follows you around. No one moved. A few nearby shoppers had noticed what was happening and were watching silently. The girls looked around, realizing all eyes were on them now. Come on, one of them whispered, tugging at her friend's sleeve. Let's just go. Without another word, they turned and hurried out of the store, their laughter gone, replaced by awkward silence. For a few seconds after they left, nobody spoke. The store slowly came back to life. The sound of the beeping register, the hum of the ceiling fans, the faint music from the speakers. Emily finally took a shaky breath. She hadn't realized she'd been holding it. Her hands trembled as she handed her money to the cashier. Are you okay? The cashier asked softly. Emily nodded. Yes, she said, though her voice was small. The man stepped a little closer, keeping his distance but offering a gentle smile. Hey, he said quietly, you did nothing wrong. Emily looked up at him, studying his face. He took off his sunglasses slowly and her eyes widened. For a second, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. Wait, she whispered. You're Keanu Reeves. He gave a small smile, looking a little shy. Yeah, he said softly. But today I'm just a guy buying groceries. Emily blinked in disbelief. She had seen his movies, The Matrix, John Wick, and others. And now he was standing right in front of her, speaking gently like an old friend. The cashier's mouth fell open slightly, but she quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the scanner again. Keanu noticed the nervous look on Emily's face and spoke again, his voice calm and kind. I saw what they did, he said. And I just want you to know, that wasn't about you. That was about them. People like that try to make others feel small because it makes them feel bigger. But you didn't do anything wrong, okay? Emily nodded slowly. It hurt my feelings, she admitted quietly. I know, Keanu said. It hurts because you care. And that's a good thing. Don't let people like that change who you are. She looked down at her basket, still full of cookies and snacks. Her hands finally stopped shaking. I just wanted to buy my cookies, she said softly. He smiled. Then let's get your cookies, yeah? Emily gave a small nod, and for the first time since walking into the store, she smiled again. It was faint, but it was real. The cashier finished ringing up her items and handed her the bag. You're very brave, she said kindly. Most people would have just run out crying. Emily smiled a little wider. My mom says to stay calm, she said. Keanu nodded approvingly. Your mom sounds smart. They both walked toward the exit together. Outside, the warm sunlight felt softer somehow, comforting. Emily looked up at him again, still amazed. I can't believe you're really here, she said. My art teacher loves your movies, Keanu chuckled lightly. That's very kind. Do you like art too? Yes, Emily said quickly. I draw flowers and sometimes people. I like colors that make me happy. That's beautiful, he said genuinely. You must be very creative. Emily's cheeks turned a little pink. I try, she said. Sometimes I draw when I'm sad. It makes me feel better. He nodded. That's the best way to do art, and from the heart. They walked slowly down the sidewalk, chatting like two old friends. Emily told him about her art class, her mom, and how she liked shopping alone because it made her feel grown up. Keanu listened the whole time, nodding, asking questions, and never interrupting. He didn't act like a movie star. He acted like a kind man who cared. When they reached the corner, he stopped and looked at her with a thoughtful smile. You know, he said, you remind me of someone I used to know. She had the same kind of light in her, the kind that doesn't go out no matter what people say. Emily tilted her head. What happened to her? She never stopped being herself, Keanu said simply. And that's why people loved her. They stood there for a moment in comfortable silence. Cars passed by, birds chirped, and the city carried on as if nothing unusual had happened. Finally, Emily asked, Why did you help me? Keanu smiled softly. Because everyone deserves to be treated with respect. And sometimes if we see something wrong, we can't just walk by. We have to say something, even if it's small. Emily thought about that for a while. My mom says the same thing, she said. She says we should always be kind even when others aren't. Your mom's a wise woman, he said with a grin. Emily smiled proudly. She is. They reached the crosswalk where their paths would part. Emily's home was just down the street and Keanu's car was parked nearby. She looked up at him again, hesitant to say goodbye. Thank you, she said softly. For helping me, he shook his head gently. You don't have to thank me, he said. You helped yourself. You stayed calm. That takes courage. Emily's eyes shone a little. I was scared, she admitted. It's okay to be scared, he said. Bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about standing through it anyway. Emily smiled again, her eyes warm. You're nice, she said simply. He chuckled. I try to be. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small folded piece of paper. Here, he said, handing it to her. She unfolded it. It was a simple note that read, Be proud of who you are. The world needs your light. K.R. Emily held the note carefully, like it was something precious. Can I keep this? Of course, he said. That's for you. She smiled so wide it reached her eyes. I'm going to show my mom, he nodded. You should. I think she'll be proud. They said goodbye, and Emily began walking home, still clutching her shopping bag and the little note in her hand. Every step she took felt lighter. The morning that had started with laughter at her expense had ended with something she would never forget. Kindness from a stranger who saw her not as different, but as someone worth defending. As she turned the corner, she looked back once more. Keanu was still standing there, watching to make sure she crossed safely before heading to his car. Later that afternoon, Emily showed the note to her mother, who read it with tears in her eyes. See? Her mother said softly. There are still good people in the world. Emily smiled and nodded. Yes, and I met one today. That night, as she sat by her window sketching again, she drew something new. A small sunflower standing tall beside a kind stranger. Beneath it, she wrote in careful letters, Be kind. Always. She taped the note from Keanu next to her drawing. It became her reminder that even when the world isn't kind, there will always be people who choose to be. And somewhere out there, maybe even that same night, Keanu Reeves sat quietly in his home, thinking about the young woman with the warm smile who had taught him once again that courage and kindness often come from the most unexpected places. The next morning began quietly. Sunlight slipped through the white curtains in Emily's small bedroom, lighting up her sketchbooks and colored pencils scattered across the table. The little note she had received yesterday, the one that said, Be proud of who you are. The world needs your light, was taped neatly above her sunflower drawing. Every time she looked at it, she smiled. Her mother came in holding 2 cups of hot cocoa. Morning, sweetie, she said. Morning, Mom. Did you sleep well? Emily nodded. Yes, I had a nice dream. Her mother handed her the cup and sat beside her. About yesterday. Emily's eyes lit up. Yes, I can't believe he helped me. I keep thinking about what he said. It made me feel strong again. Her mother smiled proudly. That's because he reminded you of what you already are. Emily thought for a moment, sipping her cocoa. Mom, do you think he really meant it? That the world needs my light? Her mother reached out and held her hand. Of course. You have a good heart, Emily. You care about people. That kind of kindness shines brighter than anything else. Emily smiled, and for the first time in a long while, she truly believed it. After breakfast, she decided to take a walk to the small park nearby. She carried her sketchbook and a box of crayons in her tote bag. The air was cool and the trees swayed gently in the breeze. Children played on the swings, dogs barked happily, and the world felt simple again. She sat on a bench under a big oak tree and began sketching. This time she drew the scene from yesterday. The grocery store aisle, the tall man in the hoodie, and the moment he spoke up. But instead of making it look tense or sad, she made it colorful and warm. She added sunlight pouring through the store windows and soft smiles on everyone's faces. She wanted to remember the kindness, not the cruelty. A few feet away, a woman walking her dog stopped to watch. That's beautiful, she said, smiling. Emily looked up shyly. Thank you. I like drawing happy things. You're really talented, the woman said. Are you an artist? Emily giggled softly. I think so. I'd take classes. The woman smiled again and continued walking her dog, leaving Emily with a little more confidence than before. What Emily didn't know was that her story, the one that had happened just the day before, was already making its way around the internet. That same afternoon, a young cashier from the grocery store had posted about it on social media. She hadn't used any real names, just a short story about what she'd witnessed. A kind man stepping in to protect a young woman from being mocked. Within hours, people started sharing it. They commented things like, "This is the kind of world I want to live in," and "Kindness still exists." Then someone recognized the description of the man in the gray hoodie and baseball cap. They were sure it sounded like Keanu Reeves. Soon, pictures from other shoppers began appearing online, blurry but clear enough to confirm it really had been him. By that evening, Emily's quiet little moment of courage had become a story spreading across the world. She didn't know it yet. Back at home that night, her mom was making dinner when her phone began buzzing nonstop. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was just group messages from family. But when the notifications kept coming, she picked up her phone and gasped. "Emily," she called. "Come here, honey." Emily came rushing out of her room, wiping paint off her hands. "What is it?" Her mom turned the phone around, showing her the screen. It was a headline from a news site. "Keanu Reeves defends young woman from harassment in grocery store. A lesson in kindness." There was no photo of Emily, just a drawing someone had made of the scene. Two figures standing in an aisle, one speaking up while others watched in shame. Emily's mouth fell open. "That's us," she whispered. Her mother nodded slowly. "Yes, sweetheart. I think people know what happened." For a moment, Emily didn't know how to feel. It was strange seeing her story online, read by so many people she had never met. But as she scrolled through the comments, her nervousness turned into something else. Gratitude. People from all over the world were writing messages like, "This young woman is brave. We need more kindness like this. Thank you, whoever you are, for being strong." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "Mom, they're saying nice things about me." Her mother smiled gently. "Because you deserve it." That night, Emily couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because she liked being noticed, but because she realized something important. One act of kindness could spread so far that it touched people she'd never even meet. She decided to write about it in her journal. Her handwriting was neat and round as she wrote, "Sometimes bad things happen so we can see the good in others. Maybe that's what kindness is, like light finding its way through the cracks." The next morning, her mom got a call from the art center where Emily took classes. The instructor had seen the story online too. "Everyone's talking about it," he said warmly. "Would Emily be okay if we shared one of her drawings on our page? People should see her work." Her mom looked over at Emily, who was sitting at the table sketching a big sunflower again. "What do you think?" she asked. Emily thought for a moment and nodded. "Yes, but only if it helps people feel happy." Later that day, the art center posted her sunflower drawing with the caption, "Kindness is a language everyone understands." The picture went viral. People commented about how much warmth and hope it brought them. Some said it reminded them to treat others better. Others said they were moved to tears. As the days passed, Emily's life started changing in small but beautiful ways. Strangers sent letters to the art center, thanking her for being brave. A local newspaper asked if she wanted to share her story. Even her art class got more students who said they joined because of her. But Emily stayed humble through it all. She still went to class, still took walks to the park, still helped her mom with dinner. Fame wasn't what she cared about. What mattered to her was that something good came from something that had once made her sad. One evening, about a week later, there was a soft knock on their apartment door. Her mother opened it, surprised to see a delivery man holding a large package. "Delivery for Emily Parker," he said. Emily came over, curious. She hadn't ordered anything. When she opened the box, she found a beautiful framed print, a photo of a sunflower with a handwritten note attached. It said, "Never stop shining, Emily. The world is better with your light in it." "Keanu," Emily gasped softly. "He remembered me," she whispered. Her mom smiled warmly. Of course he did. Some people never forget kindness. Emily hung the frame above her bed right next to her drawings. Every night before she went to sleep, she looked at it and smiled. Soon after, a small local TV station reached out, asking if they could interview her for a segment about kindness in the community. Her mom hesitated at first, but Emily agreed, as long as they focused on the message, not the fame. During the interview, she sat on a simple chair in her art studio, wearing her favorite yellow sweater. The reporter asked gently, "Emily, what would you say to people who saw your story?" Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I'd tell them that being kind is never a small thing. Even if you think no one sees it, Kindness matters. It changes things, the reporter smiled. That's a beautiful answer. After the interview aired, more people began talking about it. Schools played the segment for students. Parents showed it to their kids. The story wasn't just about a celebrity anymore. It had become about standing up, caring for others, and believing in yourself. And through it all, Emily stayed the same, gentle, thoughtful, and full of quiet strength. One afternoon, while she was painting in class, her teacher walked over and said softly, "You've inspired so many people, Emily. How does it feel?" Emily smiled and said, "It feels like sunshine." Her teacher laughed softly. "That's the perfect answer." That evening, as she packed her things and left the art center, Emily looked up at the sky. The sun was setting, painting the clouds with pink and orange. She whispered to herself, "Thank you, not just to Keanu or the people online, but to the world, for reminding her that light always finds its way back, even after dark moments." When she got home, her mom had made her favorite dinner. They sat together, talking and laughing. Life had gone back to normal, but something inside Emily had changed forever. She no longer walked with her head down in stores. She no longer felt afraid of being alone. She had learned that kindness could turn a bad day into something beautiful, and that even one gentle act could ripple across the world. That night, before going to bed, Emily opened her journal and wrote one last line. "Kindness grows like flowers. If you take care of it, it spreads everywhere." She placed the journal on her nightstand, turned off the light, and drifted to sleep with a smile. Her heart full, her spirit bright, and her world a little kinder than before. A week passed since the interview aired, and Emily's story was still being shared everywhere. It had reached people far beyond her little town, across countries, languages, and even hearts. But while the world saw the story as a lesson in kindness, for some it became something deeper, a mirror. One morning, across town, a young woman named Lena sat alone in her small apartment. Her phone lay face down on the table. She hadn't posted anything online for days. Usually, her mornings started with taking selfies or scrolling through her social media feed. But lately, she couldn't bring herself to open it, because when she did, all she saw were posts and comments about the grocery store incident. She didn't need to read the names to know who it was about. She knew. She was one of the girls who had laughed at Emily that day. At first, she had brushed it off, pretending it was nothing. She had told herself, "We didn't really do anything bad. We were just joking." But as days passed and the story spread, guilt began to sink in. The way the man, Keanu Reeves, had looked at them that day kept replaying in her mind. His calm voice, his disappointment. It wasn't anger that had scared her. It was the truth in his words. "You think making fun of someone makes you better?" She couldn't get that out of her head. Lena had avoided her friends since that day. The group chat they used to share was now full of silence and awkward messages. Nobody wanted to talk about what happened. She opened her phone and saw a new post, a clip from Emily's interview. She hesitated but clicked play anyway. Emily sat on a chair wearing a yellow sweater, smiling softly. The reporter asked, "What would you say to people who aren't kind?" Emily thought for a moment and then said, "Maybe they forgot how it feels to be kind. Maybe they need someone to remind them." Lena's chest tightened. She turned off her phone and stared at the wall for a long time. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing Emily's voice, not angry, not bitter, but full of gentle forgiveness. The next morning, she made a decision. She got dressed quietly, put on her shoes, and grabbed her car keys. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. The drive to the art center wasn't long. She had seen it mentioned online as the place where Emily studied art. She didn't know what she would say or if she would even find her there. But she knew she had to try. When she arrived, the front desk clerk greeted her politely. "Can I help you?" Lena hesitated. "I was wondering if Emily Parker is here today." The clerk smiled. "She's in her afternoon class." "Are you a friend?" Lena bit her lip. "Not really," she said softly. "I just wanted to talk to her. If that's okay?" The clerk nodded slowly, sensing her sincerity. "You can wait by the garden. She usually comes out there after class." Lena thanked her and went outside. The garden was peaceful, filled with flowers of every color. She sat on a bench, her heart pounding. After about 20 minutes, the door opened and Emily walked out, carrying her sketchbook and a tote bag. She looked happy, humming softly to herself, completely unaware that someone was waiting for her. Lena stood up, her voice shaking slightly. "Hi, Emily." Emily turned, surprised. "Yes?" For a second, Lena forgot how to speak. Seeing her in person again, not through a screen, not as part of a news story, made her feel small. Emily looked so gentle, so genuine, and all Lena could think about was the awful things she had done. "I don't know if you remember me," Lena began, her voice trembling. "But I was at the store that day." Emily's smile faded slightly, her eyes searching Lena's face. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "I remember," she said quietly. Lena swallowed hard. "I came to say I'm sorry. For everything. For laughing. For being cruel. You didn't deserve that. You were just shopping and minding your own business, and I—" Her voice broke. "I acted like someone I'm not proud of." Emily didn't say anything for a moment. She looked at Lena, not with anger but with a calm that came from understanding. Lena went on, tears beginning to gather in her eyes. "When I saw the story online, I wanted to hide. I didn't want anyone to know it was me. But then I saw your interview. You said maybe people forget how to be kind. You were right. I think I forgot. I was trying to impress my friends, trying to be funny. But I hurt someone who didn't do anything wrong." The garden was quiet except for the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Emily finally spoke, her voice soft but steady. "That day hurt me," she said. "I felt small. But I also learned something. I learned that even when people are unkind, I can still choose to be kind." Lena nodded, tears falling freely now. "You're a better person than I am." Emily shook her head gently. "Maybe not better, just different. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after." Lena wiped her face. "I want to do better." "I really do." Emily smiled, and it wasn't forced or distant, it was warm. "Then start today," she said. "Start by being kind to yourself and others." Lena let out a shaky breath. "You're forgiving me?" Emily tilted her head. "If I don't forgive, I keep the hurt." "I'd rather let it go." Lena smiled through her tears. "You're amazing, you know that?" Emily giggled softly. "My mom says I'm stubborn." They both laughed quietly, and for the first time since that awful day, Lena felt like she could breathe again. They sat together on the bench for a while. Lena asked to see Emily's sketches, and Emily happily showed her. There were drawings of flowers, people, and little moments. A cup of coffee, a smiling face, a sunrise. "They're so full of light," Lena said softly. "That's what I like to draw," Emily replied. "Light makes everything better." Before leaving, Lena asked if she could give her a hug. Emily nodded. They hugged tightly, and Lena whispered, "Thank you." When Lena walked away that day, something inside her had changed. She deleted all her old videos that made fun of people. She unfollowed the friends who encouraged her cruelty, and she began using her social media differently, to share kindness, to lift others up, to spread what Emily had shown her. Weeks later, she even started volunteering at a local community center, helping kids with art and learning. She often thought of Emily and the words she had said, "Start today." Meanwhile, Emily continued painting and attending her classes. She didn't talk much about what happened with Lena, but she felt lighter knowing that forgiveness had turned something painful into something healing. One afternoon, her art teacher approached her with exciting news. "Emily, the community gallery wants to feature your work next month," he said. "They were inspired by your story. Would you like that?" Emily's eyes widened. "My art in a gallery?" "Yes," he said with a smile. "People want to see the world the way you see it, full of color and hope." That night she told her mom, who hugged her tightly. "See," her mother said, "your kindness keeps growing." When the day of the gallery show finally arrived, the small building was filled with people, friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had followed her story. On one wall hung Emily's drawings, the sunflower, the grocery store scene, and a new one she had made just for the event. It was a simple image, 2 hands, one offering a small light to the other. Underneath it she had written, "Kindness passed on is kindness multiplied." People stood quietly in front of it, some smiling, some wiping away tears. Near the end of the evening, as Emily stood greeting guests, someone tapped her shoulder. She turned, and there he was, Keanu Reeves, dressed simply as always, smiling warmly. "Hey," he said softly. I heard you've been doing amazing things. Emily's face lit up. You came. Of course, he said. I wouldn't miss it. They walked together around the gallery talking about art, life, and the power of small acts. He admired her drawings and said, You've turned one bad moment into something that makes the whole world better. That's real strength, Emily smiled. You helped me find it, he shook his head. You already had it? I just reminded you. Later that night, as the gallery lights dimmed and people began to leave, Emily stood in front of her sunflower painting. She thought about everything that had happened. The pain, the courage, the forgiveness, and the growth. Her life had changed, yes. But more importantly, so had the lives of others. And deep down, she knew this was just the beginning of something beautiful. A ripple of kindness that would keep spreading, one heart at a time. The days after the gallery show were filled with quiet excitement. Emily woke up each morning with a new sense of purpose. She had discovered something she hadn't realized before. Her voice, her actions, and even her art could reach people in ways she had never imagined. Her little apartment felt warmer, brighter, and somehow fuller, though nothing about it had changed. She still had her sketchbook scattered on the table, her favorite yellow sweater folded neatly on a chair, and her tote bag by the door. But Emily herself felt different, lighter, braver, and more confident. Her mother noticed it immediately. You walk differently, she said one morning, smiling as she placed a cup of cocoa on the table. Emily looked up, smiling. I guess I do. I feel happy. Her mother reached out and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you, Emily. Not just because of what people say about you, but because of who you are. Emily nodded. I want to keep helping people, Mom. I want to share what I learned. That same day, Emily returned to the art center carrying a small stack of her drawings. She had decided to hold a workshop for kids, teaching them to paint and draw, and more importantly, teaching them about kindness and courage. When she walked into the classroom, the children were already waiting, buzzing with curiosity. She smiled at them and set her materials on the table. Hi everyone, she said gently. Today we're going to draw something that makes us feel happy and strong. And while we draw, I want to tell you a story. The children leaned in eagerly. Emily told them about her day at the grocery store, how she had been laughed at, how it had hurt her, and how someone kind had stepped in to help her. She told them about the courage it took to stay calm, the importance of forgiving, and how small acts of kindness could ripple through the world. As she spoke, the children listened with wide eyes. Some of them nodded, some whispered to each other, and some even began to draw flowers and sunbeams as Emily had taught them. By the end of the class, the room was filled with colorful pictures, laughter, and quiet confidence. Emily felt her heart swell. She realized that this, teaching, sharing, helping, was one of the most powerful ways she could continue spreading kindness. Over the next few weeks, Emily's story continued to grow. Local news stations, small blogs, and community groups shared her journey. But it wasn't fame she sought. It was connection. She wanted people to see that courage and kindness were simple things, something anyone could choose to do, every single day. One afternoon, as Emily walked home from the art center, she noticed a young man handing out flyers near the park. Curious, she approached him. Hi, she said. What are these for? He smiled. It's about a community event celebrating kindness. People in the neighborhood are sharing stories about times someone stood up for them or helped them. Your story inspired it. Emily's eyes widened. Really? Yes, he said. We thought it would be great if you could come and maybe speak for a few minutes. Emily hesitated. Speaking in front of a crowd was different from teaching a small art class. But she remembered the words that had carried her through everything. Start today. I'll do it, she said finally, a little shy but determined. When the day of the event arrived, the small park was filled with families, neighbors, and even people Emily didn't know. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and tables were set up with snacks, drinks, and art supplies. There were kids painting, parents talking, and volunteers moving around, all with warm smiles. Emily stepped up to the small stage, clutching her sketchbook. Her heart was pounding, but she looked out at the crowd and felt something shift. She wasn't alone. The people in front of her weren't there to judge her. They were there to listen. Hi, she began softly. I'm Emily. I want to tell you about something that happened to me and what I learned from it." She told them the story, the laughter in the grocery store, the fear she had felt, and the moment someone stepped in to help her. She spoke about courage, kindness, and forgiveness, just as she had told the children in her art class. The audience listened quietly, hanging on every word. Some nodded, some wiped tears from their eyes, and some smiled knowingly. When she finished, there was a pause, a moment of silence where everyone felt the weight of her words. Then the applause began. It was soft at first, and then it grew louder. People cheered not just for Emily, but for the message she carried. For courage, for kindness, for hope. After the event, many people came up to her. A teacher told her she planned to use Emily's story in her classroom. A mother said her children had been inspired to help someone who was bullied at school. Even the young man who had handed out the flyers came over, shaking his head in admiration. "You've made a difference today," he said simply. Emily smiled, feeling her chest fill with warmth. She realized something powerful, that kindness could travel further than anyone ever imagined. One act, one choice, one moment of bravery could grow into something much bigger than she had thought. That evening, back at home, Emily sat by her window with her sketchbook. She drew another sunflower, taller and brighter than ever, with little rays reaching out like fingers. Beside it, she drew small figures, people holding hands, helping each other and smiling. It was her way of remembering that even small actions could create ripples. Her mother came in with 2 cups of cocoa. "You look happy," she said softly. Emily nodded. "I feel happy, I feel useful," her mother smiled. "You've always been useful, Emily. You just didn't see it until now." Days turned into weeks, and Emily continued to share her story, teach art, and help others. She even received letters from children, adults, and people from other countries, thanking her for inspiring them, for showing them that kindness mattered, and for reminding them to be brave in small ways. One day, while sitting at her favorite bench in the park, Emily noticed a familiar figure walking toward her. It was Keanu Reeves. He smiled gently. "Hi, Emily, hi," she said, eyes bright with excitement. "I didn't think you'd come again. I wanted to see how you were doing," he said. "I've been following everything you've been doing." "You're amazing," Emily blushed. "I couldn't have done it without you." Keanu shook his head. "No, Emily, you did it all. I just reminded you of your own strength." They sat together on the bench, talking quietly about life, art, and the small things that could make the world a better place, you know, he said. "Most people think making a difference has to be big, but it doesn't. Every small act counts." Emily smiled. "That's what I've been learning." Before leaving, he handed her a small notebook. "For your thoughts," he said. "Write anything that inspires you. One day it might inspire someone else." Emily accepted it carefully, feeling the weight of its importance. "Thank you," she whispered. Weeks later, Emily opened the notebook and began to write stories of kindness, drawings of hope, and letters to the world. Each page became a new reminder that courage and compassion could create ripples far beyond what anyone could see. And as time passed, her story continued to inspire people, in schools, homes, and communities. Some shared it with friends, others shared it online, and some simply remembered it when they had a choice to be kind. Through it all, Emily remained the same gentle, thoughtful, and caring person she had always been. But now she knew something she hadn't before, that her light, quiet as it might seem, had the power to reach far and wide. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with warm colors, Emily sat by her window again. She looked at the sunflower she had drawn months ago, the framed note from Keanu, and the new notebook filled with her thoughts. She whispered softly to herself, "Kindness grows when you share it. Courage grows when you try." Her mother came in smiling. "You've done something wonderful, Emily. You've changed the world one person at a time." Emily smiled back. "We all can, one small act at a time," and with that, she turned back to her drawings, her heart full, knowing that no matter what challenges came her way, the light she carried, her kindness, courage, and hope would never fade. It was the beginning of a life lived not in fear but in bravery and compassion. A life that reminded everyone who heard her story that even in a world that sometimes feels dark, one small act of kindness could shine brighter than anything else. And so, Emily's story didn't just end with her. It lived on in every person she inspired, in every act of courage that followed, and in every heart that learned the true meaning of light. Because kindness, once shared, is never forgotten. And Emily, a young woman who had simply gone to the store one Saturday morning, had shown the world exactly that.